Welcome back, guys. Happy to have you guys here. Welcome back to the channel. We're doing a live stream, and well, there's a lot going on, isn't there? A lot going on. Um, all over the league, essentially. When you look at, I know a lot of you are going to ask me about Michael Brockers since there's a lot of Rams fans here. We'll be talking about that. We'll be talking about, what the Patriots have been able to do. The name of this video, of course, is NFL free agency and Patriots versus the league. So we'll be talking about that. Just trying to turn on my mic. There we go. So, yeah, welcome. If you're new here, welcome. If you're old here, welcome. How we all doing? It's a Wednesday night, hump day, or hump night, whatever you want to call it. Yeah. We're feeling pretty good, Scott. Appreciate you asking. Well, welcome to the show. I'm gonna be talking all about the NFL free agency. I got a lot on my mind. Took yesterday off and needed that. That way we could, hit this pretty hard. What's up, Jonah? How we doing? LA Rams house. Jake, how we doing? Yeah, so before we get started, just the short version here. I'm just going to tell you guys that this is brought to you by Manscaped. They are support of the Jake Ellenbogen channel as well as Downtown Rams. And for now, you can go over to manscaped.com, pick out anything you want, and you will get 20% off when using the promo code JKB or DTR and free shipping as well. So that is our sponsor for the show, as well as I have below on the ticker, which hasn't been updated for whatever reason. You can get 10% off your Built Bar protein bar order by putting in DTSN. So let's talk. What do you guys want to talk about? We could start with anything. I know a lot of people want to talk about Brockers, so we'll go there. Brockers is a very delicate thing there because I understand 100% why they would make the move. And I told you guys, I had a feeling Brockers was gone. But what I'll say is this. I don't think it's clear cut on either side. I understand if you're going to think, well, they have Sebastian Joseph Day playing well. They're paying Ashawn Robinson. They have to like what they've seen out of Greg Gaines. Okay. But also, when the cap space is nice and everything, but when you pay a guy like that, you're not just paying him. You're not just getting, 5 sacks from him, which, by the way, is not a bad number of sacks. I know a lot of people are knocking him for 5 sacks. I thought that was a pretty good year last year for Michael Brockers. But what I would say is this. Michael Brockers is the leader. He's the heart and soul of your defense, and obviously Aaron Donald is going to have to take over and be that guy now. But I think what Brockers brought to the locker room was invaluable, and albeit, yeah, it's a big contract and everything, and I get that. But this might have. I was just talking with my father earlier about this. This might have some unintended consequences that follows. Now, I know it sounds weird because this isn't somebody that's ever had like a 20 sack season. I don't even think he's ever made a Pro Bowl. Just a very good glue guy in the middle. And, it could lead to some unfortunate things down the road. Who knows? I don't know for sure. But what I will say is that Brockers was drafted back in 2012, by the Rams. This was Les Snead's first ever draft pick for the Rams, so I know it wasn't easy for him to just let him go. When you look at the 2023 7th rounder, first off, I will point out that I'm literally going to be 27 years old when, the Rams actually get value for this trade, one. But two, what I'll also say is that, this is the same as cutting Todd Gurley. You're just, instead of cutting him outright, you were able to acquire an asset, which, asset when you're getting a 7th rounder in 2023. It's unfortunate to see it end this way, for sure. I thought, really Brockers is a guy that deserved to win a Super Bowl, the heart and soul of their defense. And I remember when we had Steve Weish on the Downtown Rams podcast, Alexis and I, and Steve told us straight up, he's like, you know what, the Rams really love him. And I wouldn't be surprised if they bring him back. And everyone was saying they're not going to bring him back. It's not going to happen. And sure enough, you were right. If you thought they weren't going to bring him back, you were absolutely right. He signed with the Ravens. However, we saw the Ravens deal go through. Whatever it was, there was some physical flag thing. You can't talk me into the fact, today that they didn't just have buyer's remorse and, change their mind. But either way, he went back to the Rams, had a pretty good year last year, and he's off to the Lions. This sucks for a lot of reasons, but, unfortunately, Brockers, who was, maybe dogging on Jared Goff a little bit, but I didn't look at it like that. I felt like more he was really just that excited to play with Matthew Stafford. Now, I gotta say, that's going to be awkward. You guys ever been there when, you say something awkward, in like a group setting or you're at a party and you say, yeah, I really don't like her, or really don't like him, or you say something along those lines. And then sure enough, the person you're talking to is their best friend or something. It's happened to me. I'm sure it's happened to everybody. It's not the same exact thing as what Brockers is going through, but he's literally going to a new workplace in which, well, he has he has that. So Goff and Brockers will probably be fine. They're grown men. I'm not too worried about that. But that's definitely something to keep in mind, is that, is a very awkward situation for sure. Yes, Linwood Carr. Question. What's your question? Thanks, Sean. Appreciate you. Yeah, oh yeah, Lions. Well, the Lions media is loving it. They're like, okay, so we have something we could ask, we have a topic. Of course, they're loving it. Did Goff take us to the bowl or Gurley? Well, so I'll say this. Todd Gurley to me was the engine of the offense. I always said that. Jared Goff helped. Jared Goff made the plays he had to in crunch time in the Saints game. He wasn't the best in the Cowboys game. They didn't need him to be. They ran over 100 yards for two different running backs. You had C.J. Anderson going over 100 and Todd Gurley going over 100. So I'll say this. Goff helped, but let's not act like the defense didn't help, and let's not act. It was a collective effort. I don't think one guy brought the Rams to the Super Bowl. But, that's a good question. Let's see. At least we re-signed Leonard Floyd. Do you agree with the 4-year deal? I would have liked 3 more, but 4 means he's probably going to finish as a Ram. Yeah, the Leonard Floyd deal, at first I thought, that might be a little bit of an overpay, but, a regular in here and a guy that's been a friend of mine for a minute now. Thank you for the follow, Brad. I see you over on Facebook. But a friend of mine that's been following my stuff for a while, Renee House. You'll see him every now and then in the comments. Actually, you'll see him every show. I don't see him right now, but maybe he's out there lurking. But Renee had a really good point on one of my videos. I think it was a video yesterday. He commented and he said, look, we always use this term market value, and it's like, we don't know the market value until we know it and until it happens. And so, I think I agree with him in a sense. We've gotten to the point where we're like, oh, he got paid. He got overpaid. He got paid way too much. And I think we could learn a thing or two from, what Renee was saying, because, to be honest with you, we don't know, we don't know if that, if that's actually the market value. So, I think that was a really good point that Renee said, because I'm using this because Leonard Floyd was paid $16 million. First thing I said on here, I said, that is a little much, but, I trust the Rams on this. But then sure enough, it comes out and it's like, is it a little too much? A guy that's one of the best edge defenders as far as, setting the edge and stopping the run, a guy that, really transformed as a pass rusher last year. Is it too much? And so Now I'm just glad, if I'm a Rams fan, I have to feel, happy that, you have stability finally on the edge. You haven't had stability on the edge since the Rams signed Robert Quinn. So, that's something to keep in mind. But yeah, those are my thoughts on that. Rodney Hudson is going to the Cardinals. Yeah, he was traded there. I find that pretty interesting. I think Arizona, they're kind of going for it all. And I'll tell you right now, I'd be a little concerned. Thank you so much for donating, Sean Anthony. I will answer that in just a sec. I will be a little Thank you so much, Linwood. I appreciate that. Um, I will be a little concerned if I'm the Cardinals or if I'm Seattle or if I'm San Francisco, and here's why. Seattle, they went out and they got Gabe Jackson, okay? Seattle's all over the place with what they want to do. I think they have some sort of an identity crisis. They just spent $7 million on Gerald Everett. What's going on with Russell Wilson? That's why I'm worried about that. If I'm the Cardinals, I'm worried because they're spending all of this. They're trying to go get it. You can see it. It's like a team if you took it in 2017 or 2016, having AJ Green and Larry Fitzgerald potentially and JJ Watt and DeAndre Hopkins, you'd be like, okay, all right. Yeah, that's friggin' awesome. But here's the problem, is that we don't know how AJ Green's going to play, okay? I think it's a good value, but we don't know how he's going to be. And on top of that, the J.J. Watt deal I thought was too much when they had other needs. Now they go out, they get Rodney Hudson. I like Rodney Hudson. I think he's a very, very good center. He's one of the best in the league. But you see what I'm saying is they keep adding age. Another team that's adding age. Look, the 49ers. When you look at what the 49ers did, I think it's a concern. Look, they spent a lot of money on, albeit he's one of the best left tackles in football in, Trent Silverback Williams. But here's the thing, folks. Trent Williams is getting over $20 million per year over 6 years. So they're spending a lot on him. They signed a fullback to a 5-year deal and Kyle Juszczyk, and they signed an old center in Alex Mack who has fallen off. So I look at that and I think, well, sometimes I don't know. It seems like they're going for the veteran presence, but if I'm the 49ers, I'm focused on filling out the back end of my secondary. Don't get me wrong, you have what is it? You just got Jason Verrett back, but you're losing Sherman. You're losing Witherspoon, and I'm not saying they're great, but you got to fill out the back end of your secondary. You lost Tart, I believe, is a free agent, so we'll see there. Wow, you guys are really loading it up today. I appreciate you so much. We'll go through it all, but I just wanted to point that out. Now let's get to it. Let's go to Sean Anthony. I'm actually more disappointed with Morgan Fox leaving. We're losing all of our D-line depth. So I wonder, Morgan Fox is probably a little bit out of the Rams' price range. I do think that they were interested in bringing him back, but I also want to turn your attention over to UTSA defensive lineman, UDFA, that's on the Rams right now, Eric Banks. He has experience being coached by the current defensive line coach in Eric Henderson. And I think Eric Banks is one of those guys where, you look at what the Rams have been able to do with, UDFAs in the past, go back to Rodney McLeod, and then, you see what they did with Corey Littleton and, of course, what they've gotten out of Troy Reader. But then, Morgan Fox is another guy. Well, I'm honestly wondering, and I've seen a lot of people say Mike Hocht, and I've seen a lot of people say Jonah Williams, but of the 4 defensive linemen that are UDFAs, I'm telling you to pay attention to Eric Banks. I might have to do a video on him. I'm really intrigued by him, and I'm intrigued by that familiarity complex with the defensive line coach already in Eric Henderson. So that's a name to keep in mind, and that could be why they ultimately decided to not match an offer like that and let Morgan Fox walk in free agency. Let's see here. Okay, Mark, appreciate you for donating. I'm concerned San Francisco and Cardinals are gearing up to beat us. We have no help for Donald to fight all these O-line signings. What are we doing? Well, Mark, I'll tell you right now. I was just mentioning that they're a little bit older. I do think that age is something to, um, something to consider. But one thing I'll say is this: the Rams wouldn't have let Brockers go if they didn't feel confident in their defensive line as it stands. You don't just let go of a starter. I think it speaks volume to the ability of Sebastian Joseph Day and how he really, as a seventh rounder out of Rutgers that only could really stop the run, couldn't really rush the passer. I thought you saw some things that you have to like there moving forward as a pass rusher. And I think, just that ability moving forward and his development has made the Rams, wary enough where they're like, all right, well, we can let Brockers go. And then we have Sebastian Joseph Day. And then on top of it, you're paying Ashawn Robinson a lot of money here. And he's not a contract that's very, you couldn't really play around with that contract. So they felt, those three guys up front. And then you have Greg Gaines. And like I said, I think they like Banks. And, you guys have also mentioned Hawked and Jonah Williams and Marquise Copeland. So they have some guys. And let's be honest here. I wouldn't be surprised if they go out and they get a defensive lineman. I think there's going to be a lot of defensive linemen in this draft that do fall because I don't think it's the best D-line draft. But if you can get a guy like Jalen Twyman out of Pitt in the fourth or fifth round, I don't think that would be a bad option at all to add, into your, that rotation. Because I do think a big key to the Rams last year was keeping these guys not only healthy, but fresh. And by having a rotation, the way Morgan Fox played allowed a guy like Aaron Donald to sit on the pine a little bit, catch his breath. So I do think that's very important moving forward, and is something that I will look for, with Eric Banks and what the Rams do, in the draft. Like, what are your sources telling you? Anybody we are interested in? Because right now I feel like the meme do something, LOL. Thanks again, Mark. And thank you so much, Brandon. I just saw that you donated as well. The donations are really appreciated and overwhelming. I mean, I'm really thankful that you guys kicked this thing off with a bang. We came out just rolling right out of the gate. But, as far as, who I've spoken with, I do know the Rams had some interest in Marvin Jones. Ultimately, that wasn't going to work. A lot of money. And don't get me wrong, I think it was a doable deal, but where the Rams are positioned in right now, I'm thinking that they're going to wait. They're going to wait and, think in terms of when the Rams got Nickel Roby-Coleman when free agency had died down. They got him for 1 year and nearly the veteran minimum. And I'm thinking that if you grab a guy like that, you saw what Nickel Roby-Coleman ended up being for the Rams. They got a guy with that talent at the veteran minimum back before the cap limit was going down. Now this year, you're starting to see the wide receiver market dry up. I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams, after being able to rework Stafford's deal now that it's official, maybe they go out and they see what they can get with Juju Smith-Schuster, or maybe they dip into this Kenny Golladay business, or maybe they go after, Will Fuller. I wouldn't be shocked. But I will say I don't think they're going to do that. I think they're going to look at one more receiver in the draft, a guy that has deep speed ability, that, has a speed, another level of speed that isn't actively on the roster, which, of course, always leads me to say I think Dwayne Eskridge out of Western Michigan is the guy you need to look at in that scenario. But I think the linebackers have to be talked about a little bit here because, a lot of you, and of course me included, I was really interested in going out and getting Kyle Van Noy. Kyle Van Noy, of course, right before I went on here, he's going back to the Patriots. So that is out of the water. Jayon Brown, for a pretty cheap deal, went back to the Titans. So I wonder if the Rams, are going to go after a linebacker in the draft. I've said it. I've speculated on the idea that Raheem Morris likes linebackers more than Brandon Staley. Raheem Morris was around Deion Jones, and I think that, he's going to want that type of do-it-all, like sideline to sideline speedster at linebacker that can really, make him pay. And I think one of those guys you have to mention is Jabril Cox out of LSU. He was North Dakota State linebacker, transferred to LSU, had himself a great year. This is somebody that has a similar mold to Deion Jones. So if you're looking in that realm, I'm thinking that's somebody that you're definitely going to want to put your name on. As far as nickel corner, I've had people ask me, who could the Rams go after? Obviously, I'd love a Dory Jackson. I'm wearing a USC sweatshirt right now. I like USC. I obviously have been following them for quite some time. So I mean, look, Adoree Jackson would kill two birds with one stone. Essentially, he could play cornerback and he could return kicks and punts. I think he'd be a great fit, but he also is super young and he has great production as a boundary corner on the outside in coverage. I think he's one of the top five guys, outside when covering outside with, I think it was quarterback passer rating. I just saw PFF post something like that. So that's not going to be like an easy go ahead and get him type of deal. But what I will say is Brian Poole is a nickel cornerback from the Jets. He had his best season this year, was a top 10 cornerback according to PFF. And this is somebody that has familiarity with, Raheem Morris, was with the Falcons early on in Raheem Morris's Falcons tenure. He got there in 2016, was with Raheem Morris from 2016 to 2018, then, went over with the Jets. He's only gotten better. He's 28 years old. That would be a perfect addition if you couldn't go out and get DeMonte KZ, who's also a guy that could be interesting, has that, flexibility to play safety, play corner. But I'm looking at a guy like Brian Poole as somebody that's not being talked about, and that could be, a guy that the Rams target. We saw it last year. We saw it with Wade Phillips going after Kayvon Webster and Aqib Talib, and we saw it last year. Brandon Staley going out and getting his guy. After the cuts came, they went out and got Justin Hollins, and of course, we all know they got Leonard Floyd. So I'm waiting for Raheem Morris to get his guy, and I'm thinking Brian Poole might be the one that no one's talking about. We've heard Charles Harris mentioned. We have heard all sorts of mentions. I mean, we've heard, Darkis Denard. We've heard Keanu Neal. We've heard DeMonte KZ probably more than anybody, and Dante Fowler Jr. if he took a pay cut or if he was cut. But we haven't heard Brian Poole, and I think Brian Poole is probably the most valuable of that bunch, except for maybe KZ, and is somebody to keep in mind moving forward. Sorry, that was a lot. Let's see here. Do you know why the Rams aren't going after people this year in free agency? I think they're waiting. Let's see. Yeah, I really like Brian Poole. Hey, Jake, love your channel. Keep up the great work. Who should the Rams draft this year? How much of an impact would they make this season? Hey, thanks, Bryant. Appreciate that. I'd be looking at, I'd look at Eskridge in the second round. I know a lot of people disagree with me. They don't need a fourth receiver, but when you have Eskridge's ability, I think you're getting a guy like Tyreek Hill that can completely transform this offense, can put them in first, and they have a chance to really shatter records, I think, because if you can get things going, first off, we've already seen what Robert Woods, what Cooper Kupp can do, and what Tyler Higbee can do with Jared Goff. But now you have Matthew Stafford, and things are a little bit different. You're going to have a new and improved Cam Akers, I would imagine. You're going to have Darrell Henderson another year, into his career. And you're going to have Bryson Hopkins. We'll see what we get out of him, plus Van Jefferson in year 2. You add Eskridge to the mix, a guy that can win over the top. He can win a bubble screen and take it to the house. He's got speed that's not actively on this roster. So I would look at Eskridge. And then the third round, they have 2 picks. I'm looking at, potentially a developmental interior offensive lineman, maybe a guy like Kendrick Green, who had a great pro day today as far as athletic traits are concerned, but I had no question about that. And then, I'd look at linebacker, and, if you can get Jabril Cox in the second, maybe you, try and get Eskridge, with a trade up. But what I will say is that, Jabril Cox, if they don't get him, there's other linebackers. And I think one linebacker I've said a lot, he was in my last mock draft. You look at Cameron McGrone and what he can do out of Michigan, the angles he takes. He is a true thumper, but he's also athletic enough to really play, in this league. He's not old school. He can play in this league, and I'm a big fan of his game, as well as Jamin Davis from Kentucky and Garrett Wallow from TCU. So we talked a lot there. And I don't want to alienate everyone here. But I do want to get into some of the other moves that were made. Um, well, first let's just talk about Kenny Galladay going to the Giants. I let's just say this, okay? So Daniel Jones is probably not everyone's favorite quarterback. I know there's a few Giants fans that really like him, right? But the thing about Daniel Jones that I do like is his mobility and the fact the Giants are sticking with him. Regardless of how you feel about the quarterback, you have to give the Giants credit because the Giants aren't just sitting there and trashing Trubisky. They're not trashing, potentially trading Darnold. They're not giving up on Minshew. Like, none of that. They took a quarterback. He didn't have his best year last year, but he showed flashes in his rookie year. And they're trying to give him weapons. And I appreciate that. First off, they go out, they draft Andrew Thomas. Did Andrew Thomas look like the best tackle in the draft this past year? No. I would probably say my OT1 looked like the best in Tristan Wirfs. But they are making the effort to go out and get him protection and get him weapons. They paid Kevin Zeitler a lot of money. They've now let him go because that was a lot of money. They paid Solder a lot of money. Solder's going to be available this year, opted out last year. And then they go out, and now that they could potentially get Kenny Galladay, they got John Ross, a guy that can take the top off of defense. They still have, Sterling Shepard. I think I really like what they're doing for Daniel Jones. They also got Devontae Booker as the backup for Saquon Barkley. I'd imagine that probably signals the end of Wayne Gallman. So I like that they're sticking with him. And before you guys call me a Daniel Jones homer, I'm far from it. To be honest with you, I might even replace Daniel Jones. You know how I am with rookie quarterbacks and how I am with, second-year quarterbacks and developing quarterbacks and how the young quarterback ecosystem. I won't get into that. I probably said that way too much. But you guys get my point. So when I say that, wow, I really appreciate what they're doing, it says a lot because I'm not the biggest fan of Daniel Jones, but I'm interested to see where this rebuild, or not this rebuild, but this development goes. And going out and getting a guy like Kenny Galladay, my only issue with Galladay is, can he stay healthy? If he stays healthy and plays 16 games, or what is it, 17 now, he's going to go over 1,000 yards. He's going to have 10 plus touchdowns, with Daniel Jones, and he's going to be a monster in the red zone, and he's going to help the Giants out tremendously, with Saquon Barkley. It's going to take the load off of Barkley to be the guy, just the guy, him. So I do like that. Now another one is interesting is the Bengals are also in this mix. And this, to me, if the Bengals are in it, I know Callahan was the OC back when Galladay was a rookie in Detroit, and Callahan is now with the Bengals. So there's that familiarity factor, and they've already made an offer, but he's going to visit the Giants first. If they get Galladay and they have Tyler Boyd, what I'm looking at here now that AJ Green's gone, they have T. Higgins, is this to me is allowing them to go out, they get Galladay, and now they don't have to draft a wide receiver in the draft. I know a lot of people want, Burrow to go back with, Jamar Chase, but let's be realistic. That doesn't happen all the time. Okay, that doesn't always happen, and they should probably focus on tackle. They are in prime position to maybe get Penei Sewell at the very worst. Get Christian Darrisaw. I don't see him going before that. So I think they're going to get a big time bookend tackle. And I think that's, why they're interested in a guy like Kenny Galladay. I wouldn't be surprised if they go after Will Fuller either if they miss out on Galladay. But I actually like that. I like it for Burrow. And I'll say this, this wide receiver class is so dry right now. I think things are going to start to fall into place once Kenny Galladay gets signed. So I'm hoping it's soon. I'm hoping the Giants sign him, and then we get a chance to see where Juju and Will Fuller end up. Because I also have to lead into this. Curtis Samuel was such a valuable pickup for Washington. I also love Ryan Fitzpatrick in Washington. Okay. Ryan Fitzpatrick is the perfect quarterback to have if you have everything around you, because he's going to be enough to win football games. And what you can do is you can draft a quarterback. If they want to trade up now in the draft and go up and get their future quarterback and have him sit behind Ryan Fitzpatrick, very similar to what happened with Tua, that's the move. I think that's the move. But let's be honest here. If Washington's able to acquire a Deshaun Watson or a Russell Wilson, to me, they're favorites in the NFL. They have everything now. They added William Jackson III, who people forgot all of a sudden how great of a football player he is. And then, of course, they go out and they get Curtis Samuel to pair him with his former college buddy, Terry McLaurin. And they also have Kelvin Harmon, and they drafted Antonio Gandy Golden out of Liberty. So, those are 4 receivers there. They have Antonio Gibson, a guy that can win out of the backfield as a pass catcher, and he can obviously run the ball. He's going to be a star. And then their defense is the defense is monstrous. So I'll just say this. If Washington gets Watson, they're the favorite, man. But I really do like, the direction they're going. And plus, I don't think Heineke is a bad backup at all. So you have Fitzpatrick and Heineke, and you guys know where I am on Fitzpatrick. I came out with that video saying I'm hoping that he gets an opportunity to start. So, I think this team does win the NFC East yet again, but I think they're going to win it pretty easily, if you ask me. As long as Fitzpatrick doesn't take a nosedive off, if he plays any bit like he did last year, then they'll win the division. And I know people are talking, well, what about the Cowboys and Dak Prescott? Well, you already saw Dak Prescott had to throw. He was averaging, for the season, he was on pace for 6,000 passing yards, and they were still losing games. So I'm not convinced on that side. The Eagles are going to be terrible. I don't even know what they're doing. And the Giants, I think, are an interesting team, but I don't think they're there yet. We'll see as this, progresses. But I think the biggest issue with the Giants is that they spent so much time on the Leonard Williams deal, which blows my mind, to be honest with you, because they tagged Williams. They could have waited. And because of that, they missed out on Leonard Floyd. He went back to the Rams. And they missed out on some other guys who we don't know who they were interested in. They missed out on a lot of guys. And that was reported, is that the thing that was holding up their free agency the most was getting Leonard Williams paid. And I just, to me, thought that was, first off, he got paid a lot. I think he's a very good player, but is he great? That's the question. And if he's not great, then is he worth that much? I wouldn't say so. So I think they might have overpaid him. And I think they might have put him solely as the priority, so much so that they missed out on an opportunity here and there with another guy. Jake or anyone, what would you say the Rams cap space is looking like right now? They're barely under the cap space. They're under by a decent margin, not decent, but like a small margin for the top 51. The top 51 cap is all that matters going into today. So the 4 p.m. Eastern time deadline, the Rams had to get under the top 51 cap. The top 51 cap is essentially you take the 51 top paid players on your roster, and that is the only number that counts against your cap is, going into the new season. But what about the regular cap? Well, glad you asked. So the regular cap, the total cap, is the number that only matters Week 1 NFL season. When the new year starts, you have to be under that in order to go into the new year. So we have March 17th, the new league year starts. You have to be under the top 51. Then, because, and keep in mind, this is why they do the top 51. It encourages you to have a 90-man roster, because now you don't have to pay all these different guys. It's just the top 51 the contracts on your board there, on your books. So that's the point of it. If you guys didn't know, the top 51 is what you have to get under for today, what has already been done. And the total cap is what you have to get under for week 1 of the NFL season. As soon as the new season starts, the regular season, you have to be under the you have to be under the total cap. That includes all of the, the guys. So I don't know, something to keep in mind. And keep in mind, it's always going to be a little bit overblown because it's still the total cap is taking in everything right now. And of course, you're going to cut down from 90 to 53 anyway. So you'll be around the top 51 to be, regardless. Um, yeah, Fitzmagic should get them W's. I totally agree with that. I won't say the Rams don't have money. I think here's the thing. A lot of people were asking me, well, what about the Stafford deal that you were talking about? They didn't rework anything. Well, keep this in mind. That Stafford deal didn't become a 100% certainty. It didn't become it didn't become official until 4 p.m. Eastern time on March 17th, which is today. Once it became official, the Rams were then able to go and they could rework Stafford's deal. But we don't know what they're doing. We have no knowledge of that. I'm saying that's what they could do. And what they could do is they could rework his deal in a way where they sign him to an extension that voids out the last 2 years or 3 years or 4 years and basically stretches out the cap. So it's not a huge cap hit this season, would free up some space. They also have an opportunity with Rob Havenstein as well. So they could trade Rob Havenstein or cut Rob Havenstein, but those are their only two options, to be honest with you. You're not going to cut Tyler Higbee or trade Tyler Higbee. You can't really restructure him. He's not going to, bring anything. And then you're not cutting Johnny Hecker, who's the best punter in football. So that's just not happening. So that's the way that is. I don't know where Josh Reynolds is going to go, but, if we're going by the trend, I'm assuming he's going to go to Arizona since we have a Ram in San Francisco. We have a Ram in Seattle. I'm assuming he'll be a Ram in Arizona. But who knows? I mean, I could be wrong there. Let's see. Kyle Van Noy's 2-year deal is $13.2 million. So not bad. Rashard Higgins is coming back to the Browns. So this is actually kind of funny. The Patriots are getting a 4th-round comp pick for Kyle Van Noy, who they just brought back. So keep that in mind. Patrick Peterson is going to the Minnesota Vikings on a 1-year, $10 million deal. I'm just looking over these right now. Any that stood out. The Raiders traded Gabe Jackson to Seattle. So Seattle's helping out the offensive line. I think we already kind of discussed that, though. Gerald Everett went to Seattle. Look, I actually like the move. He has familiarity with, former passing game coordinator, now offensive coordinator in Seattle, Shane Waldron. Could be the go-to guy. Keep in mind, Shane Waldron started out as a tight ends coach. So he's worked with Everett. Makes a lot of sense. $7 million for 1 year. Everett is the go-to guy in Seattle with this move. So, fantasy owners, if you feel like, Everett with Russell Wilson is something to keep in mind, well, there you have it. Levi Wallace is re-upping with Buffalo. Solid corner there. Jordan Lewis came back to Dallas. I was a little surprised it was Lewis and not, and they didn't, keep Awuzie, but nonetheless, Alshon Jeffrey and Malik Jackson were cut by Philly, and Quentin Jefferson, underrated defensive lineman, signed with Vegas. Now, the Panthers were a little busy. They got Mo Fox, who we talked about earlier, and they were actually able to acquire Hassan Reddick. I like this a lot because Reddick is, and this is really cool. Matt Rule is one of my favorite, by far, he's one of my favorite coaches in the league right now. And the thing about Matt Rule is he's brought over, some of the guys he coached at Baylor. And, you saw that they drafted Bravion Roy, for instance, a guy that had been on our show. But they also go out and they get Hassan Reddick, who he coached at Temple. So I like that they have that chemistry there. Hassan Reddick really turned it on this year, and I like that he's going to be opposite, on the other side of Brian Burns, who's turned himself into one of the premier pass rushers in football. My top edge defender in that class, even over Nick Bosa. I loved Brian Burns. So I like what, Carolina's doing, and, Everybody still believes that they're going to make a huge play for Deshaun Watson. We will see. With all the Watson news, I think that trade is going to be very, muted. I don't think we're going to see a lot of, movement, moving forward for a while. And then when Watson's able to clear his name, if he is able to clear his name, then we'll see that. So there's a lot of stuff going on right now. Now, what I will say is when you look at like the receivers, we're talking about that being a dry market right now. I think it's more of a waiting game with Juju and Will Fuller waiting to see what Galladay gets. But on top of that, the running back group, you have Kenyon Drake who's still out there. You have Chris Carson who's still out there. I mean, there's some good running backs that might not have a home. I'm imagining a guy like Adrian Peterson will probably catch on since Frank Gore had no issue signing all those contracts. So we'll see. But that is definitely something to keep in mind. The top tight end now, all of a sudden becomes, well, you could argue, but Dan Arnold from Arizona. So tight end group is a little hidden, but also quarterback. Mitch Trubisky is the top quarterback remaining right now. And I'm a little surprised, to be honest with you, that he has like no interest. And I understand a lot of people dislike him. I get that. But like I would have absolutely taken Mitch Trubisky over Andy Dalton. I think the Andy Dalton move is so bad. I think that like the Bears are kind of along the lines of what Washington is becoming, like what they could have been. The Bears had an elite defense with Vic Fangio, and then they lost Fangio, and then they got Chuck Pagano, and Pagano kind of kept it going. It wasn't as dominant, but it was still a very good defense. And now we're hearing all this stuff. They're going to cut Kyle Fuller, and they signed Andy Dalton to compete with Nick Foles. I mean, my God, I feel for Bears fans. They deserve so much more. Matt Nagy should have been fired a while ago. Ryan Pace should absolutely have been fired a while ago. It's ridiculous at this point, what the Bears are going through, what their fans are going through. Just the fact of the matter is that they have really done a horrible job. I mean, this is Ryan Pace, the same guy that brought in Mike Glennon to be the starting quarterback at one point or another. So, Chicago, I don't really think, Mike H is saying, I think problem in Chicago is more Matt Nagy, not Trubisky. I agree. I mean, at some point or another, Trubisky looked like he was developing and then nothing happened. So I'm honestly wondering if it'll be like a Ryan Tannehill situation, a one-year starter in college, top first round pick. Tannehill gets traded to the Titans, and then he has a resurgence. I'm wondering if Mitch Trubisky is going to be able to do something like that. I'm also wondering if Jared Goff is going to be able to do something like that. And we're going to talk a little bit about the Lions because I know a lot of people seem to believe, and I said this before, that the Lions are tanking, right? The Lions are in rebuild mode. They're tanking. But let me just say this. I don't think the Lions are going to be as bad as everyone else thinks. Now, they are going to have to shore up their wide receiver spot. Don't get me wrong. And I think they do that in the draft. So I'm not as worried about that. But when you look at the offensive line, all 4 out of 5 guys are coming back. Ode Abushi is the only red name here, but you have Taylor Decker, Jonah Jackson, who, by the way, was a third-round pick last year. Taylor Decker, a former first-round pick in 2016. And then you have Frank Ragnow, who I absolutely love. Frank Ragnow. He was my number 1 center in the draft when he came out in 2018, but he also played with a broken throat, so he's my hero, and he should be yours as well. Tyrell Crosby, another guy I love, 5th rounder in 2018. I felt like he should have gone a lot higher. Was my one of my top tackles in that draft. He's, I thought he played pretty well, and he's also a friend of the show. So they have, Logan Stenberg, a 4th rounder from this past draft. They have Halapuli Vaitai, or however the hell you say his name, who they paid. Maybe they could kick him in at guard. So they really just have one guard spot that they need to fill there. But all in all, Goff is getting the same offensive line, minus a guard, that will be going. I'm not a big fan of Big V at all. I'm just telling you what's there. Then you look at the tight ends, and they had Josh Hill, who I thought was a solid addition. Not anybody that is huge, but they already have talent. There they got Alize Mack, who I still haven't given up on, and they also have Hunter Bryant, who I also liked. But they have T.J. Hawkinson. He's somebody to me that could be one of the best tight ends in football. Hawkinson is a first rounder, was picked the same exact selection as Eric Ebron. So I understand there are a lot of Lions fans out there that are a little worried by that. That gives them PTSD, and I understand that. But I mean, TJ Hawkinson's just different. Ebron didn't block the way Hawkinson does. And Ebron didn't come from Iowa. Hawkinson has a whole different mentality about him. I think he's going to be special. Then you look at, DeAndre Swift. Obviously, he's going to be their bell cow. They add Jamal Williams, a guy that can help them all over the field, as a pass catcher, and then obviously he can run the football. Big back that, they're getting from Green Bay. Kerryon Johnson's still on the roster. I don't know for how long. I think you're pretty much good with those two. And then you look at the defense, and sorry, I don't see this team. I see this team being competitive. I don't see this team tanking. I don't think this is going to be a bottom team because the Lions also now have Trey Flowers. They have Michael Brockers. They have John Pennicini, a 6th rounder from 2020. They have, Austin Bryant, a 4th rounder from 2019. They have Nicholas Williams. They got over from Chicago. They brought back Romeo Okwara. Loved that move so much. And then they still have Deshaun Hand, a 4th rounder from the 2018 draft. And then you look over at the linebackers. They brought back Jalen Reeves-Maybin, who I do like. Jelani Tavai is somebody that I like as well. They brought in Sean Dion Hamilton, who I really liked in the draft, coming out of Alabama. And then they have Jamie Collins, of course. And then you look at the corners, and you have Jeff Okudah, you have Amani Oruwariye. I like some of those guys there. Tracy Walker, Will Harris is somebody I really liked out of Boston College in 2019 out of the 3rd round. So they have some pieces, and I think they are going to get better. Obviously through the draft, I don't think their free agency is done. We will see. But I do like what they're doing there. They also have Mike Ford as well. But what I will say here is that the Lions aren't going to be terrible. I'm not saying they're going to be a Super Bowl contender, but this idea that Dan Campbell is going to be horrible, I don't know if I agree with. And that to me is why, that's what I'm talking about as far as the Lions are concerned. Mark, I saw you donated again. Appreciate you. I'm going to need you to call the Rams and tell them to sign Justin Houston and Clowney. Let's get O-line, receiver, and linebacker, cornerback help in the draft. That's a lot. Here's what I'll say. Okay, Clowney would be great, especially now. I think he's going to take a little bit longer to sign because of his injury that he's coming off of. But what I'll say about Clowney is that all of the concern about injuries and the risk is kind of dumbed down a little bit now that you have secured an edge defender in Leonard Floyd. And I think that Clowney could really be a huge boom. And he's honestly at the top of my list, if I'm being honest. You have Brian Poole, who's at the top of my list for nickel, as well as Adoree. And of course, I like AJ Boye. So one of those three I would love. Jadeveon Clowney, somebody I really like as well. After that, I'm fine with them calling it a free agency. I mean, aside from those guys, I don't see there's a ton left that I'd really want. I want Blythe back, and that's about it. So hopefully they do that. But I really like where they're at. I like where the Rams are at all in all. I don't think they have a ton of needs. I understand you could look at this, at first glance and think this isn't a better team than last year. Maybe you're right. But keep this in mind. The draft hasn't happened yet. And I'm looking at Matthew Stafford instead of Jared Goff at quarterback. I'm looking at Cam Akers in year 2. Darrell Henderson in year 3. Then you look at the offensive line that could entirely come back to where it was last year. So if they get Blythe, they return all 5 guys, which is something that is huge. Keeping that continuity and the gelling alive is huge. Then you look at Tyler Higbee, somebody that blew up 2 years ago. Last year he dealt with an injury, and Jared Goff wasn't really getting him the football. This year he has Stafford and isn't injured. Feeling good about that. I'm also feeling good about Bryson Hopkins. Big fan of him. #1 tight end in that draft for me. He went in the 4th round. He's going to get an opportunity. I'm feeling good about Cooper Kupp and Robert Woods, 2 guys that are 1st and 2nd in yards after the catch. I'm feeling good about Van Jefferson, a 2nd rounder who I absolutely loved at the Senior Bowl, and I absolutely loved on film coming out of Florida. And then I'm looking at the defense, and I'm thinking, well, okay, so you lost Morgan Fox and you let go of Brockers, but you still have Sebastian Joseph Day, Greg Gaines, Aaron Donald, Ashawn Robinson. I was talking up Eric Banks. Keep in mind, number 98. Keep that in the back of your mind. They have Marquise Copeland, Michael Hawk, and Jonah Williams. So they have some guys there that they could develop. Eric Henderson is doing a bang-up job, so I wouldn't be surprised if one of those guys really emerge. So I'm not worried about that. And then, they bring back Leonard Floyd, who, by the way, I wasn't expecting them to bring back. So that's huge. Leonard Floyd is going to help tremendously, obviously, in the run game. We knew that. He was great last year. I think he's going to be really good this year. If they can add another guy, that would really help Aaron Donald out off the edge. Right now, you'd be penciling in either Justin Hollins or Obanai Okoronkwo or Terrell Lewis. To me, I would probably go with Justin Hollins out of that. But, edge is the only, so far out of all of the needs, edge is the only need if they bring back Austin Blythe at center that they actually have there up to that point. Then you look at inside linebacker, and yeah, we could be picky here, and we could say, well, Troy Reeder, Kenny Young, Micah Kaiser, Trayvon Howard, Christian Roseboom, they're just guys, they're Jags. But you could also live with that. And I don't know if the Rams will, but I would prefer to get a linebacker, but that's not a need, I wouldn't say. I think a true need is filling a hole, which you have alongside Floyd. And so that's what I would like. And that cornerback, you brought back Darius Williams. I told you he wasn't leaving the room. And then you have Jalen Ramsey. You have David Long, a 3rd rounder in 2019. It's put up or shut up for David Long. And you have Jordan Fuller. You have Taylor Rapp. You have Terrell Burgess. You have Juju Hughes and Nick Scott. So you have, that, and of course, Dante Dion. So you have all sorts of guys in the back end. In the secondary, add another guy like a Brian Poole or, an Adoree Jackson or AJ Boye, and this team is ready to roll. They just need an edge to me and another corner, and they don't need Dwayne Eskridge, but I'm thinking Eskridge takes them to another level, and I'd like to see the Rams offense typically go to another level. I don't know about you. So, Jake, what do you say to people who think we need an upgrade at center? Go watch Blythe. I'm telling you right now, Austin Blythe isn't that bad. The problem is that people are focused on his tag. They're focused on the fact on how the Rams got him. They're focused on the fact that he was cut by Indianapolis and the Rams claimed him. If he was a 1st-round pick, he'd be getting all sorts of praise. But because he is not, it's the same thing we see with Gardner Minshew. Because he's a 6th rounder, he has a shorter leash. If you really look, this is how teams are built. You're built upon those guys. The Rams do a nice job of finding those guys, and that is exactly why they're able to make these trades for a Jalen Ramsey, because they find these guys all the time. If you haven't been paying attention, Sebastian Joseph Day was a 6th rounder out of Rutgers who nobody liked. No Rams fan liked that pick because they didn't know who he was. Well, he's made himself a pretty damn important guy in this defense. Troy Reeder, UDFA. He's given you, an entire year's worth of starts? I think he's already had 16 starts in his career. He's coming from Delaware. And you're this guy's had to start because the 5th rounder and Micah Kaiser, that's a fan favorite, hasn't been healthy. So Justin Hollins is a guy you just got off of waivers during the massive cut down right before week 1, And he ends up being a decent contributor. You can't be picky because this is how teams are developed. I'm seeing a lot of people saying, the Rams should have traded a third or second rounder for, what's his face? The center that everyone was talking about, Rodney Hunsitt. Absolutely not. If the Rams traded a second for a 31-year-old center and just didn't sign Blythe, that would be a horrible move. Horrible. Because you can't keep doing this. And the Rams know that. They can't keep trading and going for the house and just saying, well, we're going all in. We're all in. We're win now. You can't keep doing that if you don't do the little things in between. So the Rams right now have to knock the next 2 drafts out of the park, in my opinion, because you need to develop that depth. But on top of that, maybe they don't have to because they do such a great job of coaching up, these UDFAs. And gotta tell you, Eric Henderson, defensive line coach, I feel really good about the future. At least one of those 4 guys that you mentioned, that you heard me mention, Eric Banks, Michael Hawk, Marquise Copeland, and Jonah Williams, at least one of them is going to be as good or better than Morgan Fox. I'm telling you right now, this is how it works. The Rams found it through Corey Littleton as a UDFA. They found it through Rodney McLeod. They found it through Ethan Westbrooks. The list goes on. Malcolm Brown, a UDFA running back who they coached up to the point where he followed them from St. Louis in 2015 as a UDFA running back to he just played his last season with the Rams in 2020. He actually stayed with them long enough to have the first touchdown scored at SoFi Stadium. So remember that, because that's going to be a trivia question someday, and it's going to win you a lot of money when you say Malcolm Brown and everyone looks at you like, it wasn't Cam Akers? No, it's Malcolm Brown. So, I don't know. I'm not too worried about going back to Austin Blythe. I don't need this big name center. I just need a guy to be competent. And Austin Blythe does that. So, I don't think he's going to be too expensive. Mac, I think, what did Mac get? $5 million? I think Blythe is going to be cheaper than that. And if he's not, he's not. But I'd rather have Blythe back than sign another free agent, to be honest with you. Here's the thing. You draft for value. You sign for need. Fill your holes now in free agency so you can draft best player available. If the Rams didn't draft best player available, Aaron Donald wouldn't be available. He wouldn't be a Ram. You think defensive line was the best available? They had Robert Quinn, Chris Long, Michael Brockers, and Kendall Langford. They didn't need Aaron Donald. But if they went by need, then they wouldn't have arguably the greatest player I've ever seen in my entire life. And maybe when it's all said and done, the greatest player to ever play the game. That's all because they decided to go best player available. Todd Gurley as well. And you can say what you will about Todd Gurley, but let's be honest, the arthritis was a fluke. They got a guy coming off a torn ACL at number 10 overall. He instantly was a factor. And then in 2017-18, he was the engine of the offense, led them to the Super Bowl. Should have won MVP in 2017. I mean, to be honest with you, like, I would always go with value. And so when we're talking about Eskridge, to me, Eskridge is value. When we're talking about Jabril Cox, to me, Jabril Cox is value, because when you're picking at 57, those guys are going to be, 1 and 2, and maybe some others. So that's what I would say. I'm hoping they're able to rework Stafford's deal to the point where they have money so they can go in and be like, okay, we have money to spend now. We've been waiting our turn. It's a dry market. Let's go and get a Nickel Roby-Coleman-esque deal on a Poole, a Brian Poole, or somebody along those lines. Get into like a 1-year, $2 million deal because the market is so dry. And then reap the rewards, because you fill holes in free agency. It allows you to draft for value instead of need, which, decreases the reaching and increases depth and success in the draft. So that's my thoughts on that. We need another Deacon Jones. Yeah, I would not mind another Deacon Jones. The Stafford deal's official. The Rams have yet to announce the deal. So it's official per league standards. But it is not, the Rams haven't announced it yet. They just dropped a Jared Goff tribute video, so they're getting ready. Tomorrow they will announce it. Former Packers backup quarterback, Tim Boyle is signing as the backup for the Lions, so he will back up Jared Goff in Detroit. Larry Ogunjobi, this is a very underrated signing here. I haven't heard anything of the sort. I think he's a pretty solid player. The Bengals are signing former Browns defensive lineman Larry Ogunjobi to a 1-year deal. I don't know why no one's talking about him, but I think he's a solid player. I mean, well, I think Brad has done a great job. Brad Holmes, going out and getting Brockers, I thought was smart. I really like the fit for them. I mean, we'll obviously see how that works out, but I don't have any questions about Brockers as far as if he can play in this league or not. I don't think Todd Gurley would ever play for the Rams again. And I don't know if it's necessarily the Rams. I just think Todd Gurley would never come back. That did not end well. That ended as bad as it could have. Greg Robinson. Did he get arrested for having pounds upon pounds of marijuana at the border? That wasn't very smart, was it? Something like that. I forget what it was. Yeah. Oh, yeah. A Matthew Stafford presser is 100% going to happen. They're probably going to have the jersey reveal, all of that. They're going to make it all pretty and everything. I don't think it's going to happen right now. I think they're going to wait a little bit. They'll announce it tomorrow. I don't think the presser's tomorrow. They might have a presser, but it won't be with Stafford. They typically schedule those out. Yeah, that's insane. So I'm looking at the Lions. That signing for Big V was really bad. They could restructure that, save about $6 million, but I doubt Brad Holmes is going to do such a thing because he knows he doesn't want to kick the can down the road with Vitae. I didn't like him on the Eagles. I always felt like he was overrated. He was like a cult fan favorite. Oh, God, this contract is so bad. It's a horrible contract. But you can get out of it in 2022. 2-year, $20 million, $4.2 million in dead cap money. So they are absolutely going to go after doing that. I think having a guy like having a guy like Michael Brockers is huge for the morale in the locker room. I think he's going to be great for them. Aside from that, though, well, it's weird they didn't have Desmond Trufant was definitely cut, right? Because they don't even have him cut on Spotrac. Yeah, he was officially released today, so I don't know why Spotrac is behind that, but the Lions are about $9.7 million in cap space. So that's total cap. I don't think the Floyd contract's bad at all. Have you guys seen the Floyd contract? Have you seen the breakdown of it? I really don't think it's bad. I just looked at it. I'm going to pull it up right now. 1 second. So the Leonard Floyd contract, there's only a $5.5 million cap hit this season. He's getting $2 million base salary. They're using a $3.5 million signing bonus. for this year. So this year he's already been paid $3.5 million. The cap hit is $5.5 million. The Rams have a potential out after the 22 season going into 2023. They would incur $7 million in dead cap, but they'd save $32.5 million over the course of the next 2 years. If this entirely works out correctly with the 4-year deal, Leonard Floyd would be set to be a free agent at 33 in 2025. That could be a prime target for him to come back on a cheaper deal because of that age. So I think the Rams really set themselves up well here. If he looks really good and at 32, 33, they'll be able to bring him back. Desmond King is available. All right, guys. I'm going to take a quick intermission here. I will be right back. Don't go anywhere. I will be right back. All right, guys. Well, thanks for waiting for me. Let's see what we got here. Who needs Juju? I thought the Goff tribute was solid. I didn't, I don't think it was the Matthew Stafford one that was just 9 minutes long, but I'd like Peterson. I've gone on record. You guys know I like Peterson. You turn 14 next week, Vicksburg? Damn. Well, if you stop by on your birthday, I'll wish you a happy birthday. Top 3 defense, I don't know for sure. There are a lot of good defenses out there. Maybe But I mean, I need to see it, you know. Need to see it in action. I mean, the Rams don't really have too many needs right now. I'd probably say edge, potentially interior offensive line. If you want to call it deep threat and a need, I wouldn't call it a need though. And then maybe maybe a corner, but in a linebacker, of course. But they don't have like too many needs. I'd say needs edge and linebacker for me. So I do want to come to Brocker's defense. I saw some people going in on him for not wanting to restructure. Henry brought that up. And what I'll say is this: it wasn't as simple as restructuring, and not everything always is. They were probably trying to do a lot more to his contract and get him to take a full-on pay cut, which isn't restructuring. It means he wouldn't get the money that he was getting with a restructure up front. He wouldn't get it at all. So I think Brockers was forced to forfeit some money, and I think at that point he wasn't interested in that. And this is somebody that almost left LA and went to the Ravens. And if he didn't fail his physical, he'd be a Raven. So I don't know. I don't hold anything against him, to be honest with you. Yeah, I find that interesting though. There's a lot of people saying that like, he wasn't a team player. I just don't think it was that. By the way, gotta say I like the Corey Davis signing for the Jets. I think it's underrated. I think that needs to be talked about a little bit more. Oh, the Vikings got Dalvin Tomlinson. I did not know that. So I mentioned Jalen Twyman earlier as an option for the Rams. His pro day, he came in at 6'1", 301. And he ran a 5.51 40 or 5.31 5.39 40. Let's see here. He had 40 reps on the bench press though. That's a shame. Yeah, the Brockers thing is just really unfortunate. Don't hate the player, hate the business, right? What's up, Mark? We really went off with a bang to start this thing. All sorts of follows and donations and crazy. This has been a pretty fun stream. I mean, I know it's a Wednesday and that's not our best day on the schedule, but it felt like a pretty good day today. I mean, it's gonna feel like the Rams got worse because they only brought back Floyd, but it's not over yet. I'm telling you, go back to when they signed Clay Matthews. Go back to when they signed Nickel Roby-Coleman. They sign these guys later on, so it doesn't affect the comp formula, and they get them for cheap. If you wait long enough, some of these guys are going to be easy to get, very, very cheap. So we'll see in that department, but a lot of people want Quinn Miners. I mean, I think by the way, I was on Twitter and I saw the Bengals rotation here, and let's see here. Hubbard. So they have Sam Hubbard, Larry Ogunjobi, DJ Reader, Trey Hendrickson. That was a really good pickup by them. Then they have Jermaine Pratt. They have Wilson. They have Logan Wilson. They have Chidobe Awuzie. They have Trey Waynes, and they just added Mike Hilton as well as Awuzie. And then they have Von Bell and Jesse Bates. They also have Akeem Davis-Gaither, who I really like. The Bengals are slowly making their way. We'll see. We'll monitor them. I mean, the way it's looking right now, I don't know how long it'll take before the Steelers are the worst team in that division. I didn't think I'd say that, but it just, I don't know what the Steelers are doing. You have Big Ben take that pay cut. It's about $12 million, saved them a lot of money, and they weren't able to get Bud Dupree back. They got Cam Sutton back, but they lost Mike Hilton to their rival. And I don't know what's going on as far as the Steelers go. I don't really know what they're doing. I don't know what their plan is. If they're waiting like the Rams are waiting and like Chris Ballard and the Colts are waiting, fine. But I felt like the needs were too pressing to wait. I don't feel like the Rams have as many needs. I don't feel like the Colts have as many needs. But a team like the Steelers that needs an entire new offensive line, it seems like, only $4.6 million in cap space. And, it's not the most ideal, I would say. They still have, Avery Williamson is a free agent. They cut Vince Williams. James Conner's a free agent. They'll probably move on from him. But, I mean, they got Cam Sutton back. I definitely like that move. But I just don't know what they're doing, so to speak. David DeCastro is the only one on that offensive line that, should give you true hope. But I do like Kevin Dotson from Louisiana Lafayette. I did like that pickup, so that's somebody. But you need a left tackle, you need a center, and you need a right tackle because you had Pouncey that he retired, and Alejandro Villanueva is a free agent right now. So I don't think the D is. I don't think the Rams D is looking grim. What's up, Jake? Thanks for tuning in, my man. I see you. Yeah, but that's if though. What are the Rams going to do with saved cap from Brockers, in your opinion, Jake? I mean, I will say this. I think they used his cap to get under the top 51 threshold so they could move along into the new year and then try to rework Stafford's deal, bring it down to maybe a $5 million cap hit, save about $15 million. Give them some opportunity to go out and get some guys in free agency that are bargains, and on top of it, re-sign your own in Austin Blythe. That's how I saw that. Yeah, and at no point do I expect the Rams to bring back Josh Reynolds. I don't care how dry the market gets. The Rams are more likely to bring in Juju Smith-Schuster or Will Fuller or Kenny Golladay than pay Josh Reynolds. If he can stay healthy, Todd Gurley would be a decent ad for the Steelers. I think he's better than James Conner. And I like what they have with Anthony McFarland Jr. I like the OC being that it's Matt Canada, who also coached Anthony McFarland Jr. at Maryland. I like the connection there. I think Todd Gurley would be a solid addition. I'm curious to see where a guy like Chris Carson goes. He would also be a great addition there. Or, somebody like Kenyon Drake. Not having cap space is really, really clogging up the free agency. Dory Jackson, yeah. Yeah, Jake, things are going well. When you're able to get 81 people on a live stream talking about, just talking about free agency and on a Wednesday, I think you have to feel pretty good. I am ready for that thing to go back up to 600 or whatever it's at when we announced Matthew Stafford. I think if Juju comes to LA, it's for the Chargers. He was a Chargers fan growing up, not a Rams fan. Adoree Jackson was actually a Rams fan growing up. But I wouldn't say he would go to the Chargers just for the sole purpose of him being a Chargers fan when he grew up. I think he'd go to the Chargers because I think they make more sense than the Rams. Great question, Jake. I really like Aaron Jones. I got some flack on Twitter for saying that I do think running backs matter in the NFL more than given credit for by most of the analytic community. Not saying everyone, but I think when you look at what Aaron Jones can do, Aaron Jones can do it all, and I think he's very valuable for what you look for in a running back. First off, I think he's one of the best running backs in football. I think it's one thing, where you don't have the money for Jamal Williams, but I also don't think it was an option to let Aaron Jones go because, then Aaron Rodgers is coming back and he's like, all right, so how much better did we get? Did we get better? We lose Corey Linsley. We lose Aaron Jones. We lose Jamal. You know what I mean? Like, so I like that they went out. They paid Aaron Jones. And I think Aaron Jones was a bargain, to be honest with you, because I think Aaron Jones next year or the year after could have gotten more when the market goes up because the TV deal. So I think they got him at a discount. I know some people disagree with me, but I just think his, natural all-around ability as a pass catcher, as a runner, I just think to me it was the right move for the Packers. They like to do so many things with Aaron Jones and talk about a hit, man. Out of UTEP, I mean, definitely a very good pick. And that was in the same draft where they actually drafted Jamal Williams ahead of him, which is I've always found funny. But yeah, I like the pickup, man. I like the pay. I'm all for it. I don't agree with this absolute idea that running backs don't matter. Don't pay running backs because the analytics tell you so. Okay, well, I mean, the analytics tell, managers in baseball to take out pitchers after 2 innings and then end up costing them the game. So miss me with the analytical nonsense. I think you have to have feel. And so when I look at, Aaron Jones, I saw how important he was against the Rams in the playoffs. I see how important he is just in general. This is somebody for the last 2 years, he has over 1,000 yards in both seasons. He improved upon his 2019 season with 4.6 yards per carry. He took it to 5.5, had 9 touchdowns rushing. And then in 2019, he had 16 rushing touchdowns. So, this is somebody who has just gotten better every year. So I don't even know if we've seen the best Aaron Jones yet. I think he can still continue to get better. I like his ability as a pass catcher again. Got better every year. Starts off with 9 catches for 22 yards his rookie year, then goes up to 26 for 206, then goes up to 49 for 474. Now it was 47 for 355 in 2 fewer games. I love Aaron Jones, and he's actually rushed for 5.5 yards per carry in every season except for 2019. So I think that's something to keep in mind. I like the move. And I think that people are sleeping on Chris Carson and Kenyon Drake. But I also feel as though that the market is just so dry in general that I'm not exactly surprised that they don't have a job yet. I mean, Packers Twitter went nuts, LOL, but he's so instrumental in that offense. Plus, they're going to have that 21 personnel going with Dylan. Yeah, exactly. Because they know how to use 2 running backs. Come on, Sean McVay, get it together. I actually, when I broke down the film for the Packers-Rams game. I said it, Jake. I said straight up, Sean McVay better look at this film next year, and he better realize this is how you use two running backs. When you have guys the caliber of A.J. Dillon and Aaron Jones and Jamal Williams, or if you have guys the caliber of Cam Akers and Darrell Henderson, you have to use two running backs. You have to be able to keep defenses off balance. How do you defend them? You really don't, and you saw that. The Rams couldn't defend it. The only time the Rams stopped the run is when the Packers stopped running the football. So that's where I'm at on that. I think it made a lot of sense. I'm glad you put that out there because I'm all for it, and I've seen a lot of people against it. So if any Miami fans are out there, I think Malcolm Brown's a really good addition, by the way. I don't know if it was correct, but I'm pretty sure I saw it was 1 year, $7.5 million it can go up to. I'm imagining like half of that is guaranteed, or not guaranteed. Half of that is incentivized money. But here's the thing. When you look at what Malcolm Brown can do, he's gotten better every year. He's somebody that can catch out of the backfield. He's somebody that was put in because he was the best pass protector, out of the running back group this year. He's somebody that can win those short yardage situations. He always finds the goal line when need be. Reliable, even a little bit of a leader in that running back room. So I like that move for Miami. You go out, you get him. I think he can start for you. And I don't know if that's what their plan was, but I have to imagine it's something along those lines, since if they actually gave him those incentives, then, I mean, that has to be for a reason, right? So, I think that move for Malcolm Brown was huge. I like him in Miami. Tua needs some running back help. You don't have to go and break the bank for a guy. Malcolm Brown is somebody that, he goes in that room with Myles Gaskin and Salvin Ahmad. And I like the way it looks. You also have Jordan Scarlett as well, who they added. So I like their running back group. It is a modern day, it's a modern day running back by committee, but this is where the league's trending if you don't have an Aaron Jones. So, and even still. So, IMO signing every Pro Bowler doesn't make you better. All these guys want is that second contract over winning, thus seeing them going to crappy teams. Yeah, no, I get that. Now, the Jaguars are interesting because there's not one starter that's, I mean, maybe there's a few, but for the most part, most of their starters are being retained and they're actually doing more. So when you look at the Jaguars, they have Gardner Minshew right now as the starter. That's going to change. They're going to draft Trevor Lawrence. They have James Robinson coming off a huge year. You have DJ Chark. You just added Marvin Jones. You have Laviska Shenault. First off, let's talk about the fact that those guys have size. So you immediately have three guys that are at least over 6 feet. That's a good look right there. But they're all fast. Marvin Jones is a 4.4 guy. Laviska Shenault is a early 4.5 guy, and DJ Chark is a 4.4 guy, a 4.3 guy. So they have the speed, of course, there. And then you have guys, you added Jamal Agnew. Agnew is going to be very intriguing to me. I think the Lions really made a mistake letting him go, but he also was paid a little bit, so I can't really hate on him too much for that. They also have Colin Johnson, a monster 6'6" receiver from Texas, who they got in the 5th round in the 2020 draft. You go out and you add Tyson Alu, who they drafted in the 1st round years ago, didn't really pan out. He went to the Pittsburgh Steelers, had a monster season, signed a 2-year deal, might end up retiring a Jacksonville Jaguar, where it's all coming full circle. So you add Alu, you have a 3rd round pick in Davin Hamilton. You have Taven, you have a 1st rounder in 2018, Taven Bryan. You have Josh Allen, 1st rounder in 2019. You have Caleb Chason, 1st rounder last year. You added Jihad Ward from Baltimore. You brought back Dwayne Smoot, somebody that's very good at stopping the run, but can also rush the passer. He's gotten better each year. You have Miles Jack, Joe Scobert, Leon Jacobs, of course, the guy that you drafted in 2018. Dakota Allen, who was drafted by the Rams, went to the Raiders, and they ended up getting him from the Raiders. They added Roy Robertson Harris from the Chicago Bears in free agency. They have a third-round pick in Quincy Williams, a fourth-rounder in Shaq Quarterman. And then you look, at corner, and they add, of course, to go with C.J. Henderson and Trey Herndon, not my favorite corner in the league, but, Trey Herndon nonetheless. They go out and they add Shaq Griffin for a decent price. They have Rudy Ford, who was pretty much the definition of a special teamer. He's potentially in there to be the third safety, but they have Andrew Wingard of UDFA from Wyoming. And then they have Rayshon Jenkins, who they just paid, who took over for the injured Derwin James. So look, the Jaguars don't even look all that bad. They have a lot filled out here, and it'll be interesting. They still have plenty of cap. I mean, I know they were signing guys left and right, but I'm pretty sure they have plenty of cap even still. They have Trevor Lawrence on the way. I don't think Jacksonville is going to be as bad as people are saying. I don't even know who the worst team would be. I mean, at this point, who do you think the worst team in the NFL is going to be? By the way, Jacksonville has $42 million in cap space still remaining, and they have Andrew Norwell, Cam Robinson, and Miles Jack as the only players over $10 million in cap. So, I mean, that's huge. So, I mean, probably Houston. I would definitely say Houston. Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do. I mean, did you really just get a bunch of these guys to come over here just for, they signed all these guys, right? They have about $5 million in cap space remaining. Laramie Tunsil's making about 19.4 for a cap hit this year. Deshaun Watson, 15.9, will be traded. I have no doubt about it. He's going to be gone. Whitney Merciless, $12 million. Zach Cunningham, 11.4. They traded Bernardrick McKinney, and they got Shaq Lawson, who has an 8.5 cap hit. Randall Cobb is a 10.4. They have some really bad contracts. So, I mean, I think Houston is going to be a train wreck. They got a lot of guys that are mercenaries where, they're football players that just want to get paid or they just wanted to start. Can't blame them. Like Mark Ingram, this was a good situation for him. But if you're trying to win a ring, you're not going to Houston. So, yeah, Houston's probably the worst team in the entire league. Because I'm going to tell you right now, the Lions aren't the worst team, and neither are the Jaguars. And I look at the Jets, and the Jets are definitely better than Houston. Yeah, let's take a look at the Jets more in depth here. So the Jets here, depending on if they stick with Sam Darnold or not, I think they should just build around Sam Darnold. You're looking at Corey Davis, Denzel Mims, and you have Jamison Crowder. So right off the cuff, you have 3 receivers who can start in this league. I like it. Then you have Mekhi Becton. And then, you have George Fant, Greg Van Roten, Connor McGovern, and Alex Lewis. You could definitely use a boost in the interior there. Chuma Edoga is a third rounder who I liked out of USC. Could move in at guard. We'll see what they do with him. They still have Christopher Herndon, a fourth rounder from Miami in 2018. They have Ryan Griffin and Trayvon Wesco, a fourth rounder from 2019, who I really liked out of West Virginia. And then LaMichael Pirine at running back. They got some really good contribution out of Ty Johnson last year. They just re-signed Josh Adams. So we'll see if they add a running back there. And then you look at the defense, and they have Folo Fatakowski. They have Quinnen Williams. They have Nathan Shepard. They added, of course, John Franklin Myers when they, added him from waivers. The Rams cut him. Carl Lawson was a huge move for them. Somebody I didn't expect them to get. They have a 23rd round pick in Jabari Zuniga. They went out and got Jared Davis on a 1-year, $7 million deal. They have Blake Cashman, Harvey Lange. And And then, they have Frankie Louvu as well, so maybe they could add some help at linebacker, but I don't think those guys are terrible. They, like the play of Bless Austin and Bryce Hall, obviously a fifth rounder, in 2020. Bryce Hall really came into his own at the end of that last year. Ashton Davis and then Marcus May, who they ended up tagging. Now, this is a team that was reportedly interested in John Johnson. So, they might add another safety in the draft. They did add Saquon Hampton from Rutgers. And they have Javelin Guidry as well as Corey Ballantyne to go with Bless Austin, as well as Justin Hardy, a guy that they added who was formerly with the Saints, Kyron Brown, and Lamar Jackson from Nebraska. So, I don't think the Jets look like the worst team. They have some guys that I like. Bryce Hall, Dabney, I totally agree. Bryce Hall was a huge snag for them. Fifth rounder should not have been available there. But I'm just thinking, you know what? Houston is by far the worst team in the NFL. I don't think it's even close. I don't think you have anyone that can remotely come close to as bad as how Houston is. The Lions aren't. We just looked at the Jets. They aren't. The Jaguars aren't. I don't really see. Maybe let's see what the Eagles have here, because the Eagles, even still, the Eagles still have a decent roster. They still have players. When you look, first off, Jalen Hurts. I like Jalen Hurts. Then you have Miles Sanders, who I like, Boston Scott, who I like, just Jason Huntley, who I also like. And then you look at the receiver room, Jalen Reagor, Travis Fulgham really came into his own last year. Quez Watkins was a sixth rounder in last year's draft. J.J. Arcega-Whiteside was a second rounder in 2019. They're probably done with him. Interested to see what happens with Hakeem Butler, who they moved to tight end. Alshon Jeffrey, they just cut. So they'll probably add a receiver or two, I would say. You look at the offensive line, Andre Dillard is going to fit right in there. Jason Peters is a free agent. So that's something to keep in mind. So you have Andre Dillard, first rounder in 2019, was out the whole year last year. Isaac Sumalo. Then you have Jason Kelsey, Brandon Brooks, and Lane Johnson. So, you have some good pieces there. Plus you have Jack Driscoll. And Jordan Mailata, who I like a lot, Matt Pryor as well. So they have some depth on the offensive line. As long as those guys stay healthy, they're going to trade Zach Ertz. That's going to be the Dallas Goedert show. And then you look and, they have Tyree Jackson, who they're trying to turn into a tight end. So we'll see how that goes. That'll be something to watch. Then you look at the defensive side of the ball, and they have Derek Barnett, Javon Hargrave, Fletcher Cox, and Brandon Graham. I definitely like those guys, as well as Joshua Sweat out of Florida State in the fourth round of 2018. They have TJ Edwards, who they like, Sean Bradley, Davion Taylor, Jannard Avery, and Alex Singleton. So they have some guys, at linebacker. Duke Riley and Nathan Gary are both hitting free agency. Avonte Maddox playing well. Darius Slay, Cravon LeBlanc is going to be a free agent, but they have Lavert Hill, and Shaq Taylor as well. And then Kayvon Wallace, fourth rounder from 2020, Rodney McLeod, and then Marcus Epps. So I think that safety they're going to need to focus on. But this team, no team stands out to be as bad as Houston. Houston looks horrible. So, I think they're the worst team. I don't really think it's particularly close. I don't know. What do you guys think? Houston, the worst team? I'm looking at their... As of right now, Cole Cabral... Well, no, because they signed Justin Britt. But Cole Cabral, who was on the Rams practice squad, was the projected starter before they signed Justin Britt. They added a bunch of guys that are just solid, but I just don't think that moves the needle enough. Camu Gregor-Hill, Terrence Brooks, Terrence Mitchell. That was a good pickup, I think. Kevin Pierre-Louis, solid. Christian Kirksey, again, solid. Malik Collins, Andre Roberts, Chris Moore, Paul Kessenberry, Tyrod Taylor. I mean, yeah, I just don't. They're going to be the worst team, I think. Oh, I definitely think the Patriots are a playoff team, even with Cam Newton. And I'm not high on Cam Newton at all. I think they should move on. We'll see. Don't rule out a Trubisky signing if they can't get Watson or Wilson. But I think they're vying to go out and get Wilson. Or sorry, they're vying to go out and get Watson. We'll see. Yeah, I'm excited for Bryson Hopkins. Hope he gets a shot. I wouldn't trade for Zach Ertz, but I wouldn't be surprised if the Rams do that. I'm just not trying to trade any more draft picks. You got to start drafting. I mean, you can't keep trading draft picks, you know? The Rams are under the cap by about $4 million, around that. You think free agency is slow because the Pats took all the players? That's funny. Just a reminder, if you guys like the channel, be sure to subscribe. And of course, if you like the video, be sure to hit the thumbs up button. It really helps me out, helps the algorithm out. It's going to show me to people that may not actually be watching this at the moment. It's going to show me on their side panel and suggested. So please be sure to hit the thumbs up button if you haven't already. I think Wentz is going to be good. I definitely think Wentz is going to be good. Shout out to the guy that thumbs down me. He must not have liked when I said that running backs matter. I'm confused. Why doesn't it do that all the time? I appreciate you liking the stream. Yeah, I don't know why it doesn't do that all the time. I mean, I'm glad it doesn't because that'd be a lot of notifications, but yeah, I'm hyped for Samuel with the Washington football team. I think the Rams will make a move next week, maybe tomorrow, who knows, but they got to work that Stafford deal out, rework it. Hell yeah, they will. So, yeah, guys, I'm going to wrap this thing up. I might be on to game a little bit and do a Q&A or whatever you want to call it, ask me anything. Whatever you guys prefer. If it's Q&A or ask me anything, whatever. But would you guys be interested? Show of hands. Who would be interested in that later on? I need to get some water, clearly, because I don't have a voice, but cool. Oh, lit. Oh, Jake, you're in as well? I didn't know if you had left already. That's awesome. Appreciate you. We got a lot of yeses here. It's pretty nice. What should I play? Madden, Rocket League, NHL, Hitman. I think I'm going to uninstall Watch Dogs 2. I think I'm just going to go right to Watch Dogs. What is it called? the hell is it called? Watch Dogs, Legion, Cold War. I could do Cold War. I might do that. I appreciate it, Jake. Yeah, let's okay, cool. So I think I'm gonna do Cold War, and I don't have Warzone or anything like that because PS5 doesn't have a big hard drive. But I'll do I'll do Call of Duty, and then yeah, maybe Chell. We'll see. I could 3v3 Henry. We could play some Rocket League a little bit later. It's not going to be a long night, or I say that now, it probably will be, but I'm getting a little exhausted, so I wanted to do that because I haven't done one in a minute, and I do have I just got all the equipment, so it's always nice to be able to do that. I was trying to do it every night, but that's not realistic. Last night I watched Wind River. You guys ever see that? Jeremy Renner and Elizabeth Olsen. Very good movie. Saw Cherry the other night with Tom Holland. So Paul, I don't know if the Lakers will get Drummond, but I'd like him. What sucks? What is there new? Cherry's great. Cherry is a great movie with Tom Holland. I don't know if you guys saw my video on it. I did a video review on Cherry. I'll be doing more of that. Because as I said before, this is going to be like a, whatever's on my mind channel. So mainly NFL. But I will do MCU. I will do video reviews. I will game. I'm going to make this the fun channel, as we strive for 20,000 subs by the end of the year. We'll get there. We will. But yeah, so before I head out, just a reminder, if you guys need a Manscaped, go over to manscaped.com. Go pick out a lawnmower 3.0 or a weed whacker or anything over there. And before you check out, you go to the promo code section. You type in JKB or DTR. We'll get you 20% off and free shipping. And that's going to do it, folks. So appreciate you guys. We're right around 2 hours. And then what I'm going to do is I'll probably hop back on and we'll game. It'll be more lax, not really structured, although I'm pretty lax in general, but not really structured. Just ask me anything and we'll play Call of Duty and maybe play some other games. So for those of you who won't be joining me later on, no worries. I'll be back tomorrow to do another live stream. For those of you that do, you guys are the real MVPs, and I'll see you guys in a little bit. But you guys take care, and if I don't talk to you tonight, I'll talk to you tomorrow. Later, folks.